A true Stoic tightens his cloak, plants his feet, and endures. Because he understands something most people never learn in their entire lives. You don't control the storm, but you do control how you stand in it. This is where it begins. Not with changing the world, not with rewriting the past, not with fixing other people, but with mastering yourself. The modern mind is addicted to control. We try to bend outcomes, obsess over approval, replay mistakes, and rehearse tragedies that haven't even happened. And in doing so, we lose our peace, our clarity, our sanity. What the Stoics discovered 2,000 years ago is more relevant today than ever, that the path to power is found in surrender, not to weakness, but to wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, could have commanded legions to silence his doubts or fears. But instead, he turned inward and wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't preaching detachment as an escape, but as a strategy. Because he knew that control over externals is an illusion. The only thing that ever truly belonged to him was his own judgment, his own will, his own response. Seneca, too, lived this principle under immense pressure. He was exiled, betrayed, and eventually forced to take his own life. And yet, his writings are serene, precise, unshaken. He wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." What you fear may never come, but your fear itself can ruin you. The Stoic method is not about avoiding pain, it's about removing the poison of resistance. To accept reality fully, not passively, but with inner force. Letting go is not weakness. It is choosing to spend your energy where it matters. Picture a man holding onto a burning rope. The longer he clings, the deeper the burn. But his mind tells him, "Don't let go. You'll fall. You'll lose everything." So he holds on and suffers. The Stoic lets go, not because he wants to fall, but because he knows that freedom begins where illusion ends. Now think about your own life. What are you still holding on to? An argument from months ago? A relationship that's already gone? A version of yourself that no longer fits? The Stoics would say, strip it all away. Peel back everything that is not within your control, and look at what remains. That is where your life begins. That is where your freedom lives. Because here's the paradox. The tighter you grip, the less you hold. But the moment you release what was never yours to keep, outcomes, approval, permanence, that's when real power rushes in. The kind of power that cannot be taken, because it was never outside of you to begin with. Control is an illusion dressed up as safety. You cannot dictate the future, reverse the past, or force others to see the world as you do. But you can, in this very moment, choose your posture. Choose your attitude. Choose to unclench the mental fist that's been strangling your peace. The Stoics call this apatheia, not apathy, but mastery. A tranquil soul in a turbulent world. Epictetus, born a slave, crippled by his master, rose to become a philosopher who taught that freedom is the inner dialogue. If someone can disturb your peace, you gave them permission. So the real question is, what have you given permission to? What thoughts, fears, regrets, or resentments are squatting in your mind, draining your focus, hijacking your mood? Identify them. Confront them. Then let them go, not because they've been resolved, but because you refuse to carry what was never yours to bear. This is not denial. It is discipline. It is a spiritual strength disguised as stillness. The world will continue spinning, storms will come, and people will act in ways you can't predict or prevent. But you, your core, your values, your dignity, that is yours. And that is enough. Even now, as you watch this, your mind is calculating, wondering what this means for your next decision, your next move. Good. That means you're awake. Now, carry this with you. You are not the weather. You are the sky. You are not the events. You are the awareness behind them. And that awareness can either be clouded with clinging and fear, or clear, like a mirror, reflecting life as it is, not as you wish it to be. So next time you're hurt, betrayed, frustrated, pause. Ask yourself, is this within my control? If it is, act. If it's not, release. And in that single decision, you will walk the same path the Stoics walked. You will become unshakable, not because you conquered the world, but because you stopped letting it conquer you. And it continues, because mastery is not a final destination, but a daily practice. The Stoics knew that one does not wake up free. One becomes free by practicing release. Daily, hourly, moment by moment, until the habit of clinging is replaced by the habit of clarity. ChatGPT said, until the habit of clinging is replaced by the habit of clarity. And clarity is quiet. It doesn't scream for attention. It doesn't demand revenge, validation, or perfection. It simply sees. It observes without distortion, without panic, without the noise of ego. The Stoics trained themselves to return to this state again and again. Marcus Aurelius would rise before dawn and remind himself that people would lie, insult, disappoint, and still, none of that had the power to disrupt his peace unless he handed it over willingly. You see, the Stoic doesn't run from emotion, but he refuses to be ruled by it. Anger comes, but it doesn't stay. Fear whispers, but it doesn't steer. The Stoic feels the wind, senses the pressure of the world around him, but like a deep-rooted oak, he remains unmoved where it matters. Not because he's numb, but because he's focused. He's chosen to guard the one thing that truly matters, his inner domain. This isn't philosophy for the bookshelf. This is armor for real life. In the face of betrayal, the Stoic says, I will not let bitterness own me. In the face of failure, this is not who I am, only what I faced. In the face of uncertainty, let me act where I can and surrender where I can't. That's strength, not in forcing the world to submit, but in choosing not to submit to what doesn't deserve your soul. Letting go, then, is not passive. It's the most active discipline there is. It's removing your ego from the equation, stripping yourself down to truth, and choosing presence over obsession. It's telling yourself the hard truth, that not everything is meant to be yours, not every relationship, not every outcome, not even every dream. And that's okay. Because what you lose externally, you gain internally: composure, focus, resilience. And that's when something remarkable happens. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, the noise begins to fade. The energy you spent holding, defending, forcing, it returns to you. And with that energy, you begin to build. Not illusions, but foundations. Not castles in the sky, but stone beneath your feet. The world begins to shift, not because it changes, but because you do. You become the calm in the storm, the anchor in the tide. People notice. They ask how you stay so grounded. But you won't have a single answer. Because it's not just one idea, it's a way of being. A daily choice to hold nothing too tightly, to walk forward without chains, to rise without the weight of what no longer serves you. There's a moment, perhaps you felt it, when the body unclenches, the breath deepens, and the mind finally lets go. Not in surrender to despair, but in surrender to what is real. That moment is not weakness. That is the moment you begin to see clearly. And with clarity comes action, not reactive, panicked action, but deliberate steps, grounded in principle, lit by purpose. And this is how the Stoic lives, not floating above life, but rooted within it. Not untouched by hardship, but untouched by the chaos of unnecessary resistance. He walks with stillness, not because life is easy, but because his peace no longer depends on ease. You can do this right now. You don't need to retreat to the mountains or renounce the world. You simply need to start asking the question, is this within my control? And then act or release. Stay or walk away. Speak or remain silent. But let each decision come from stillness, not fear. You'll notice the shift. Not overnight, but gradually. Where you once obsessed, you now observe. Where you once clung, you now allow. Where you once spiraled, you now stand still. And in that stillness you find power. Not the kind that others give you, but the kind that can never be taken. Not the kind that others give you, but the kind that can never be taken. That kind of power isn't loud. It doesn't need to prove anything. It simply is. It walks into a room and doesn't seek to control it. It listens more than it speaks. It decides more than it reacts. It doesn't waste time fighting shadows or demanding fairness from an unfair world. Instead, it sharpens itself like a blade against the whetstone of adversity. Quietly, relentlessly. Because when you stop wasting your energy on what you cannot change, you begin pouring that same energy into what you can. Your habits, your words, your craft, your attitude, your legacy. The Stoics understood that greatness doesn't come from control over others. It comes from command over self. And self-mastery begins when you stop trying to rearrange the world and start refining the one thing you were always meant to rule, your own mind. Epictetus said it best, "Don't seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it does. Then you will be happy." Do you realize what that means? It's not surrendering your goals. It's aligning your spirit with the flow of life, instead of exhausting yourself trying to swim against it. It's not fatalism. It's strength. You still strive, but without anxiety. You still act, but without attachment. You still care, but not at the cost of your peace. And that's when everything changes. The moments that used to shake you lose their power. The opinions that once haunted you fall silent. The fear of losing becomes irrelevant. Because when you no longer need to control everything, nothing can control you. You might lose people who don't understand this shift. You might be called cold, distant, or even arrogant. But don't confuse their discomfort for your mistake. What you're building is rare. In a world addicted to drama, silence is threatening. In a culture obsessed with outcomes, contentment is rebellious. But stay the course. Because when others break under the pressure of needing everything to go their way, you will remain calm, clear, ready. And here's the truth. Life is going to test you. It will send loss, betrayal, delay, rejection. It will put you in situations where you want to scream, fight, cling. And in those moments, you will have a choice. The old way or the Stoic way. The old way reacts. It seeks revenge. It tries to fix everything, control everyone, prove something. The Stoic way pauses. It breathes. It asks, "Is this mine to carry?" And if not, it puts it down. That's not giving up. That's stepping up to a higher level of awareness, a deeper level of strength. And yes, it takes time. It takes failing forward, again and again. You'll slip. You'll catch yourself mid-react, mid-cling, mid-spiral. But over time, something incredible begins to happen. Your nervous system recalibrates. Your triggers lose their sting. Your mind becomes a sanctuary instead of a war zone. You start speaking less from emotion and more from wisdom. You walk into the same stressful situations, but now you walk through them. Not with avoidance, but with poise. You stop living in resistance to what is, and begin living in response to what could be. Because life doesn't belong to the one who controls the most, it belongs to the one who is least controlled. And in that space between impulse and action, between what happens and how you respond, is your freedom. Every single time you choose that space, every moment you opt for inner stillness over outer noise, you are practicing the Stoic method, not as theory, but as transformation. Every moment you opt for inner stillness over outer noise, you are practicing the Stoic method, not as theory, but as transformation. And transformation isn't always visible. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't parade through the streets. Sometimes it looks like choosing silence instead of arguing. Sometimes it looks like a quiet breath before responding to an insult. Sometimes it looks like walking away, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. This is the quiet evolution of the Stoic path. Not loud victories, but invisible ones. Victories within, over your temper, your pride, your attachments, your illusions. And these are the victories that count. These are the battles that matter. Because long after the world has forgotten your name, it will be your character, your presence, your discipline that echo through the lives you touched. Picture this: a man sitting on a bench, watching people rush by. Deals being made. Arguments in motion. Phones ringing. Horns blaring. The chaos of modern life spinning like a wheel with no brake. And he just sits. Not disengaged, but undisturbed. Not because he doesn't have problems, but because he's learned what deserves his energy, and what doesn't. That man is not escaping life. He's living it more fully than anyone else around him. He's here, entirely. And when he rises from that bench, he brings clarity into chaos, purpose into disorder, calm into conflict. That's what the Stoics trained for, not isolation, but invincibility. To walk into fire and remain untouched. To witness insult and remain whole. To endure change without breaking. To lose without being lost. To feel everything, but be mastered by nothing. Because the truth is, there is no peace in control. Control is exhausting. It demands constant surveillance, endless adjustments, and relentless tension. Peace lives in clarity. In knowing what is yours and what isn't. In refusing to carry what belongs to fate, to time, to others, to the world. And once you learn that, not just once but deeply, you begin to see everything differently. You stop fighting with life and start flowing with it. You stop resisting reality and begin responding to it. You stop clinging to how things should be and start engaging with how things are. And in that space, you'll find something precious. A kind of confidence that isn't showy. A kind of strength that doesn't need to dominate. A kind of joy that doesn't depend on circumstances. You'll find yourself walking through the very same world, but it won't feel the same. Where once you were thrown around by every outcome, now you stand rooted. Where once you feared loss, now you trust yourself to survive it. Where once you tried to control everything, now you influence what matters and release what doesn't. And you'll realize, this isn't detachment. It's presence. It's the deepest form of presence. Because when you're no longer wasting mental energy on what you can't control, you become radically available to what you can. To the people right in front of you. To the task at hand. To the quiet moments of beauty that the old version of you would have missed in distraction. This is the Stoic method. Not a retreat from the world, but a return to the self. A refusal to be ruled by chaos. A commitment to clarity. A life of few possessions, but great power. A life where you may lose anything, but never lose yourself. And still, the practice continues. Because it's never truly finished. Every day, life will test your grip. It will whisper temptations to control, to cling, to rage, to resist. And every day, you will have to choose again. Release. Breathe. Stand still. ChatGPT said. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. Because every time you choose release over resistance, you sharpen the blade of your awareness. You become less entangled in the stories your mind invents, less fooled by the illusion that if you just tried harder, pushed harder, held tighter, you could make everything bend to your will. That illusion is seductive, but it's false. And the longer you live inside it, the more you suffer. The Stoics knew this well. They didn't teach detachment as a way to escape life. They taught it as a way to be fully alive within it. To love without possession. To work without obsession. To lead without ego. To grieve without collapsing. To move through the ever-changing theater of the world with a steady hand on the rudder of the soul. Imagine living that way. Imagine waking up in the morning and not feeling the weight of everything you can't fix, control, or predict. Imagine moving through your day with a quiet certainty that no matter what happens, success or failure, gain or loss, praise or ridicule, you will remain intact. Not untouched, but unbroken. This is the life the Stoics envisioned, not one of cold disconnection, but of profound connection to what is real. A connection rooted not in ownership, but in awareness. Not in fear of change, but in harmony with it. Because when you stop demanding that life be different than it is, you start seeing what life actually is. Beautiful, brutal, brief, and completely beyond your control. And yet you remain. This is the paradox at the heart of Stoicism. You become strongest the moment you stop grasping for strength. You become most peaceful the moment you stop chasing peace. You become most powerful the moment you release the illusion that power comes from control. Instead, you embody a deeper kind of power. The power of restraint in a world of impulse. The power of clarity in a fog of emotion. The power of stillness in a storm of noise. This is not passive resignation. It is the active forging of character in the fire of everyday life. Look around. Most people are exhausted, not from life itself, but from their constant resistance to it. From their refusal to accept what is, from their endless efforts to hold things together that were never in their hands to begin with. And in that tension they break. Slowly. Silently, until they no longer know where they end and their anxiety begins. But you, if you walk the Stoic path, will be different. You will begin to feel the difference in your breath, your decisions, your energy. You will sense the strength of the one who no longer needs to chase, to prove, to grip. The one who acts with precision, who speaks with weight, who sees through the noise and chooses the essential. And over time, something rare happens. You become trustworthy to yourself. You stop second-guessing, overreacting, spiraling. You begin to trust your inner compass, not because it's perfect, but because it's yours and you've trained it. You've tested it. You've burned away the layers of fear and illusion until only the core remains. That core, that still, centered place within you, is your fortress. Nothing external can touch it. Not failure, not loss, not the chaos of others. Because you've built it from the only materials that last: clarity, discipline, humility, and courage. And the beauty of it all? It's available to you right now. Not tomorrow. Not when things settle down. Not after you've solved everything. But here, in this moment, in the breath you're taking right now. Ask yourself again, is this within my control? And if the answer is yes, act with full force. If the answer is no, release it completely. That's the razor's edge. That's the Stoic discipline. That's the freedom that waits on the other side of letting go. That's the freedom that waits on the other side of letting go. And yet, don't mistake this for a one-time revelation. The path of the Stoic is not a sudden awakening. It's 1,000 small awakenings, repeated day after day, moment after moment. It's not a firework, it's a candle that refuses to go out. It's not the roar of victory, it's the quiet, disciplined choice to live by principle even when no one is watching. Because real letting go isn't dramatic. It's subtle. It doesn't always feel like clarity. Sometimes it feels like uncertainty. Sometimes it feels like weakness, like loss, like silence where there used to be noise. But you learn to stay. You learn to breathe into that silence, and something deeper emerges. Not the shallow confidence of having all the answers, but the quiet strength of no longer needing them. You begin to realize, Most of the things you thought you needed were only distractions. The apologies you never received. The approval you craved. The closure you begged for. The outcomes you feared. None of them were ever essential. They were weights you chose to carry, until you didn't. And the moment you put them down, you stepped into a different kind of life. A life not built on the shifting sands of circumstance, but on the solid ground of truth. That truth doesn't shout. It whispers. It's there when you feel the urge to react, and you pause instead. It's there when you're misunderstood, and you don't rush to defend. It's there when things fall apart, and you do not. Because you finally understand that what breaks was never your foundation to begin with. This doesn't make you invincible, but it does make you prepared. The Stoic doesn't pray for an easy life. He prepares for a difficult one, and lives peacefully anyway, because he knows that control was never the goal. Clarity was. And in clarity there is strength. There is simplicity. There is peace. You may feel tested. Often. Life will throw you into moments where everything in you wants to hold on, to argue, to explain, to fix, to fight. And in those moments, the old voice will rise. Don't let go. You'll fall. But the new voice, the one you've trained, will rise louder. Let go. You'll rise. And you will. You'll rise not above life, but into it, more present, more grounded, more capable. You'll begin to experience a different kind of power, one the world barely recognizes. The power of the calm mind, the steady hand, the man who doesn't need to chase, because he has already arrived within himself. You won't need to win every argument. You won't need to prove your worth. You won't need to chase the illusion of control, because you will have become something greater than all those things. You will have become whole. And this is the ultimate paradox. The moment you stop trying to control life is the moment you begin to master it. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it.